My family sued me for $6,000 per month. Speak to our lawyer. I said, okay. I cut off their money, and a week later, their lawyer came crawling back. Hey, Reddit, I never thought I'd be the kind of person who'd end up in a legal battle with their own family. But here I am, 34 years old, single, successful, and absolutely drained by the people who once swore they loved me. If you had told me 5 years ago that the same family I used to support out of kindness would one day sue me like I was a stranger, I would have laughed. But the truth is, the only joke here is how blind I was. It started with love, or at least what I thought was love. I come from a working-class family. We never had much growing up, and my parents always made sure we knew that every meal, every new pair of shoes was hard-earned. When I was a teenager, my dad got hurt on the job and never fully recovered. My mom worked part-time at a pharmacy, and money was always tight. College wasn't in the cards unless I got a scholarship, so I made that happen. I busted my ass to get into a top school, graduated with honors, and eventually landed a high-paying job in tech. From the moment my first real paycheck hit my account, I started helping them. At first it was small, groceries, utility bills, Christmas gifts. Then it turned into rent, car payments, medical expenses. And when my younger brother crashed his car, I bought him another. They never even said thank you. It was always framed as my duty, like I owed them for giving me life. I let it slide for years. Maybe I was trying to make up for not being around much. Maybe I thought I could finally be enough for them if I just kept giving. But over time, it became clear they didn't see me as family. They saw me as a wallet. The breaking point came last fall. I had just finished dealing with a high-stress product launch, working insane hours and barely sleeping. My therapist told me to take a break, maybe go on a solo trip. I told my family I'd be unavailable for a few weeks. That's when the text started. Passive-aggressive guilt trips from my mom, angry demands from my brother, and silence for my dad, which was worse than yelling. When I finally returned home, there was a letter waiting for me, not from them, but from a lawyer. My family was suing me for monthly financial support, $6,000 every month for the rest of their lives. I stared at the letter for an hour, just reading the words over and over. I thought it was a prank. It wasn't. They'd found some attorney willing to argue that I'd created a pattern of financial dependence and now owed them like I was their personal trust fund. The nerve, the betrayal. I couldn't even cry. I just went cold. I called them. My mother answered and didn't even sound surprised. She said this was the only way they could guarantee their future, that I had plenty of money, and it was time I paid it forward. My brother chimed in saying this wouldn't be a problem if I weren't so selfish. My dad never got on the phone. Then came the line that made something inside me snap. My mom said, if you've got a problem with this, talk to our lawyer. That was it. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just hung up, sat at my kitchen table, and made a decision I should have made years ago. I contacted my bank and shut down every auto payment. I cut off every wire transfer, every shared account, every bill that had my name on it. Cold turkey. For the first time in my adult life, I stopped being their safety net. That same day, I hired my own attorney. Not just any attorney, but someone with a reputation for tearing apart manipulative family cases like this. She was fierce, direct, and brilliant. When I showed her the letter and explained the history, she raised an eyebrow and said, "This is going to be fun." Within days, she filed a response that not only challenged every one of their claims, but hinted at countersuing for emotional distress and financial exploitation. I gave her every record, years of receipts, text messages, screenshots, bank statements. The paper trail was long and damning. 1 week passed. I heard nothing from my family, not a single call or text, but my lawyer did. Apparently, their legal team hadn't expected me to push back, let alone lawyer up with someone so formidable. They assumed I'd roll over, cry, and start sending checks just to avoid the fight. They were wrong. The second week came, and that's when it happened. My lawyer forwarded me an email from their side, practically begging for a meeting to settle. Apparently, since I cut off the money, things had gotten real bad, real fast. My brother was behind on rent. My dad's medication hadn't been picked up. My mom, who hadn't worked in over a decade, was panicking about groceries. I won't lie. There was a small part of me that felt guilty, not because I thought I'd done anything wrong, but because I had loved them, truly. And I remembered birthdays and movie nights and the way my dad used to tuck me in when I was little. But that part of me was dying, replaced by someone who finally saw things clearly. They didn't love me. They loved what I could give. And now that it was gone, they wanted to crawl back, not out of remorse, but out of desperation. They hadn't even apologized. The next few days blurred into meetings and paperwork, back and forth negotiations. My lawyer urged me to stay calm, to stay firm, and I did. Because for once, I wasn't that scared little girl trying to earn affection. I was a grown woman who'd worked hard, loved hard, and finally learned to draw the line. Now they want a settlement. They say they're willing to drop the lawsuit if I agree to help them with some one-time expenses. My lawyer says it's up to me. We can fight and win, or settle and move on. Part of me wants revenge. Part of me wants peace. But the truth, I'm not sure what they deserve yet. And I've got one final move left to make. The settlement meeting was scheduled for a Thursday afternoon. I showed up in a sleek gray blazer, not to impress them, but to remind myself of who I had become, someone in control. My lawyer, Melissa, briefed me in the hallway before we entered the room. She told me to stay silent, let her do the talking, and above all, don't let them manipulate me. I nodded. I'd spent my entire life being the good daughter, the forgiving sister. Today, that version of me was done. They were already seated at the long wooden table when we walked in. My mother with that same martyr face she always wore when she wanted pity. My brother slouched in his seat looking annoyed, and my father staring blankly ahead. The lawyer they'd hired looked tired and slightly embarrassed, like he regretted taking this case. We exchanged no greetings. Melissa opened her folder and said calmly, "Let's begin." Their lawyer spoke first, outlining their proposal. They wanted to drop the lawsuit in exchange for a lump sum payment of $30,000 to cover what they claim were past debts and immediate expenses. My mom made a point of emphasizing that they were only asking for what was fair, given everything they'd done for me. I looked directly at her. "Everything you've done for me? Like threatening to take me to court because I wouldn't pay your cable bill." My brother cut in saying that I owed them for the life they gave me, that without them, I wouldn't be where I was, that I was acting like some cold corporate robot, like I hadn't been raised with family values. Melissa calmly raised her hand, stopping the conversation. "My client doesn't owe you anything. In fact, if this goes to court, we are fully prepared to file a counterclaim for emotional and financial abuse spanning over a decade. There is no legal precedent that supports your claim of lifetime support from an adult child. Your choice is simple. Walk away with nothing, or walk away quietly with less than what you're asking for." The silence in the room stretched on. My mom blinked rapidly. My dad finally looked at me and muttered, "You really going to do this?" I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry, but I didn't. I leaned forward, kept my voice calm, and said, "I did support you for over 10 years. I gave and gave and gave, and you never once asked how I was doing. You never said thank you. You just kept expecting more. And now that it's stopped, you're acting like I'm the villain. I'm not the one who sued their own daughter." That hit. My mother's face tightened. My brother scoffed and looked away. My father sank a little in his seat. Melissa closed the folder and said, "Final offer, $10,000. That's it. We walk away, you drop the case, and you never contact her again. If you refuse, we go to court and we win." Their lawyer leaned toward them, whispering quickly. My mom started to object, but he must have said something convincing because she stopped. My dad nodded slowly. My brother grumbled something under his breath, but in the end, they all agreed. The settlement was signed 15 minutes later, and just like that, it was over. I walked out of that office with a mix of exhaustion and clarity I'd never felt before. It wasn't joy. It wasn't even relief. It was freedom. The kind of freedom you don't understand until you've been tangled in guilt and obligation for so long, you forget what it feels like to just breathe. A few weeks passed. They didn't contact me again, though I saw my brother post some passive-aggressive nonsense online about how money changes people. I ignored it. I changed my number, set my social media to private, and even asked HR to remove my contact info from public company listings. It was extreme maybe, but necessary. Then something unexpected happened. I got a letter in the mail, not a legal letter, a handwritten one from my father. It was short, a single page. He said he didn't agree with the lawsuit, that he'd gone along with it because he didn't want to fight with Mom. that he'd made mistakes, big ones, and that he missed me. He asked if maybe one day we could talk. Not about money, just talk. I read it 5 times before putting it down. I haven't responded. Part of me wants to believe him. The other part remembers how many times he stayed silent while they took and took from me, how he let it happen, how he let me be used. And I don't know if sorry is enough to rebuild what they broke. I talked to Melissa about it just to get an outside perspective. She said something that stuck with me. You don't owe anyone access to your peace, not even family. That sentence replays in my head sometimes when I think about the past. Since cutting them off, my life has been quieter, I take walks in the morning. I cook for myself instead of ordering in while I work late to pay someone else's bills. I even started painting again, something I used to love before my life became about keeping everyone else afloat. The guilt still lingers some days. It creeps in when I least expect it, whispering that I abandoned them, that I'm selfish. But then I remind myself I didn't abandon them. I just stopped letting them abandon me. I built my life from scratch. I pulled myself up, made sacrifices, worked late nights, cried in silence, and pushed through. And they tried to steal that from me. Not anymore. I'm not sure if I'll ever forgive them completely. I'm not sure I should, but I am sure of this. I will never again be the person who lets others define my worth. I will never again be the family ATM, and I will never let guilt trick me into mistaking abuse for love. So if you're reading this and you've been giving and giving and giving until there's nothing left for yourself, hear me when I say this. You are not selfish for walking away. You are not cruel for choosing peace, and you are not alone. I thought cutting off my family would be the end of everything, but it was just the beginning of me. Thank you so much for watching till here. See you in the next video.